Okay, good morning and welcome to the latest The Buyer Debate. Today we're looking at the world of sparkling wine and looking at how the world of bubbles is changing and adapting and developing. And in that, we're looking specifically at the world of Cava and where Cava sits within the sparkling category. And then within Cava, we're actually going to shine the spotlight today on DO Cava and the opportunity to look at what premium Cava can do on both on restaurant wine lists, but also in premium retailers and independent wine merchants. But it's fair to say that Cava's had a bit of a mixed relationship with the UK trade. It's had its ups, downs, ins and outs, and obviously there are other categories have boomed and other categories have had their moment in the light, but there's certainly a feeling that the premium side of Cava and the quality, the prestige levels of Cava are certainly starting to re-emerge on wine lists again. And today's really an opportunity to talk to a panel of buyers, educators, influencers about how they see Cava developing in the UK and what opportunities there are, and a chance also to taste some Cavas and to go through different styles. And we're also very pleased to be joined by Javier Paches who's the president of DO Cava, who's also going to help us go through the session this morning. But before we come to you, Javier, I just thought I'll introduce the panel. So in no particular order, we have Roger Jones, who's a Michelin star chef from the Harrow at Little Bedouin. Matthew Haraven, who's the wine category supply manager for Ocado. We have Nicholas Jones, who runs wine at Home Tipple, the DTC wine website. Michael Harrison, head of wine at the Mitre Group, and Laura Griffiths, who's wine educator, runs her own wine education and training business called Lingo Vino, and also you're also part-time at Majestic as well, aren't you? I think.
I am indeed, yeah, and I do my own home wine tastings, and I do a lot of work out in Spain and Mallorca, so especially, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, Javier, before I come to you, I just asked the panel just to sort of give their initial impression on what they feel where Cava sits within their own businesses, and then perhaps Javier, we can come to you to give the official view. Roger, perhaps if I come to you first. Obviously, your capacity as one of the lead judges on the Champagne and Sparkling Wine Awards. Could you perhaps give a sense of where Cava sits, both professionally for you as a chef and the restaurant and the work you were doing in the restaurant, but also in terms of how it sits within against other styles of sparkling?
Yeah, I think generally the biggest issue that we've seen is the public aren't aware of the quality of Cava, and they generally, because of the price being good value, they look at it in the same way as they look at Prosecco, which is a huge problem because we're looking at a completely different product. As far as the Champagne World Sparkling Wine is concerned, over the years, we get great entries from that, and it's growing and growing. We do see there a lot more of the better quality, the aged Cava, so we get a far better experience than most people would have had generally in the streets in London, or in shops in London and in restaurants. We closed the Harrow 3 years ago. We didn't have that many Cavas on there, probably 5 or 6, compared to about 100 Champagne and 30 English. But I think over the last 3 years, it's certainly been growing, and the quality. In lockdown, people experimented a lot more, and we saw a lot more people searching out good quality Cava, which is very good, I think.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll come back and explore the styles that are catching people's imagination. Michael, can I ask you? I mean, with your experience working in the on-trade, where do you see Cava at the moment?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting. Where the Signet Group currently don't stock any Cava, which is quite sad to say. Obviously, it's my job to change that. But having been in the trade for many years, I mean, I can go back to the memories of Christmases spent with Casa Nevada and Corda Negro in my early family days, to working at Sainsbury's, where every major supermarket had a Cava own label, an extra dry Cava own label, all sitting under £5 back in the day. So Cava had a massive part of the market for me as an early person in the wine trade. And then moving into the Hotel Divan group, obviously quite an iconic brand when I was with it. Every hotel had numbers of Cava, and then it sort of seemed to fall by the wayside, get this reputation of not delivering necessarily, and people not being able to mention the grape varieties and how to say them even. So then there was the meteoric rise of obviously Prosecco, English, which I'm a part owner of an English brand myself. Champagne, we've been the world's largest consumers of that every year, but perhaps two. So Cava started to fight back for, certainly I was being made aware of premium Cavas 10, maybe 15 years ago. And obviously with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir being allowed back into the blends and some premium packaging, they've definitely been trying to fight back. And I think for me, Prosecco is something that I try not to stock it, because I think there are better wines. There's Cremant, there's lots of stuff at entry points, Charmat, English or whatever. So I think Cava much deserves another shot at our market.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. Laura, can I ask you? Because I mean, your passion for Spain and Spanish wine. Can you perhaps give us an idea of where Cava sits for you?
Yeah, so I mean, 100%. I am a Cava fan. I am very much when I do my own tastings. When I do the sparkling section, I love to include a Cava on my tastings, and the surprise people get when you start telling them how Cava is actually made. Yeah, I agree with Michael. They can't pronounce the grapes. You can say them over and over again. They struggle. But when you say it's traditional method and the quality and the price point that they come in at, people are mesmerized. They're like, oh, I had no idea. So it's that case of like educating them and getting it out there as much as possible. From when I'm selling, so many more people now are telling me that they are going off Prosecco, that they're finding it a bit too sweet for them, and they want to explore things like your Cremants and your Cava. But again, I think if we can educate consumers about what is actually going into making these incredible sparkling wines, they just need that confidence to buy the bottle, and as soon as they do, they will be all over it. I'm 100% convinced.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, I think you're right. I think that whole the method behind Cava, how it comes to market, I think is something which it's still fascinating in terms of the level of, particularly for the price points. Matthew, can I ask you with your Ocado hat on?
Yeah, and I'd echo. I should probably point out I actually look after the supply chain side with Ocado, so I work very closely with the buying team, but I actually have no involvement in actually sourcing what we've currently got on there. However, I do give my professional opinion from time to time. So with my previous background and my sommelier hat on, I echo a lot of what you, Roger, and Michael and Laura have already said so far. I think there's this misidentity crisis that's going on within Cava. It's got this poor connotation to it, yet the quality is there, the price point is there, the actual value for the customer is outstanding, but it just has this slight identity crisis going on that it just needs to overcome in some miraculous transformation in some way that allows it to then sort of get in that forefront and in the shoes of where Prosecco has gone. I'm with you, Laura. I'm hearing the same sort of thing. We're lucky enough that we've got quite a range on our portfolio at Ocado of Cavas, and I think the consumer will get there. It's this educational piece. They will just need to sort of now tease themselves away from this Prosecco, can I say, blandness almost, and delve into the world of Cava, where there's actually interesting quality and flavor profiles, which you don't get so much so with Prosecco.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the premium side of Cava, which I think we're going to obviously explore as we go along this morning. Nicholas, can I come to you? Perhaps also you just explain Home Tipple as well for us in terms of what the business is and where Cava sits within that for you.
Yeah, sure. I have to admit, we don't currently have any Cavas on our list, although we are searching for some. So yeah, I mean, we're a purely direct to the consumer e-commerce site for all things booze, but mainly wine, and it's more about what's behind the label and the juice than anything sort of showy. So we're always trying to find something a bit new, a bit more discovery, which calls out to sort of two major cohorts of online shoppers that have a bit of knowledge behind them and have a bit of money. They fall into two different age categories, but they're happy to sort of take that leap and discover something new and take it to their mate's house and go, look what I found, and it's better than your sort of perhaps run-of-the-mill big brand, so to speak. So I think kind of on that angle, I know that Cava generally presents a very good value proposition, and I drink a fair amount of it myself. Obviously conveying that to the customer is another thing. I think there's sort of two distinct possibilities. We talked about champagne, we talked about Prosecco. One, you know, they both have their sort of dangers, I think. But I think Cava's got an opportunity to go up against champagne because it is at that slightly cheaper price point, but it's still delivering, I think, the quality of champagne, albeit in a slightly different style. The Prosecco side of things, chasing that end of things, could be a terrible sort of race to the bottom, and could be a bit of a curse. But I think there's that thing. There's also an opportunity to sort of head premium. There's also an opportunity to sort of start again a bit like you'll see sort of, you know, parts of London getting gentrified. You spot the coffee shop, you spot the natural wine bar, all this kind of stuff. There is sort of trendy starts there and then kind of emanates out to the rest of the world. Now we see orange wine on supermarket shelves and things like that. That all starts in one little sort of hipster bubble in London, then sort of reverberates out from there. So there's a certain amount of cool education, and there's the opportunity to sort of educate into the premium sector as well. But I would be fearful of running up against Prosecco in general.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Obviously, you know, Cava's been around for generations, but in a way, the opportunity is still there for it to reinvent itself again. Javier, can I come to you? Sorry to keep you waiting, but I just thought it'd be quite interesting for you to get a sense from the panel where their thinking is around Cava. But just in general, would you mind just sort of setting the scene and explaining from your point of view what DO Cava and the potential and what you'd like to hear for the panel?
Yes, of course. Good morning, everybody. And it's been a very interesting introduction from yourselves, because what I can see is that in the UK, Cava has a challenge. And I would say that the challenge is not only in the UK, but worldwide. But I can also say that Cava is a successful sparkling wine because our sales are doing quite well. It's been growing. And we have a huge presence worldwide in many different countries. But clearly, we need to fight that identity crisis that I heard here, and really stand for quality, which is what we are. No? Well, Cava is a DO, and is specialized in sparkling wines. So the only thing that our DO does is sparkling wines. That's what we do. And And then since the very beginning, we chose the method traditional, as I heard here. So we are talking about Taddeo that there are two basic things when they make the sparkling wines, and this is origin and the method that we have chosen. And that's basically a method that requires aging. So clearly Cava chose for a quality commitment. Many different Cavas, but chose for quality commitment. And that's what we have been reinforcing during the last few years, is to go deeper on the origin of Cava. We know that consumers like to know, enjoy to know origins, where it comes from. And Dio Cava, generally speaking, we know it comes from Spain, but it comes from different territories. And what we have done is created an identity for those territories, so that consumers in the near future, because it's being implemented right now, will know from what territory Cava will be coming from. And that will help them to discern about the qualities of that Cava attached to the territory, and be able to have a bigger spectrum of Cavas, and to understand which ones they enjoy most or not, the typicities of each one. In fact, when we are talking about territories with Cava, we have 4 zones. Once we have created, the zones have always been there. Cava is built up out of 160 municipalities, townships, where vineyards grow around those, in those municipalities. But now we have created those territories, and the 4 zones will be Comtats de Barcelona, which is the main zone, is the zone in Catalonia or around Catalonia. Zona de Levante, which is around Valencia. The zone of Viñedos de Almendralejo, that would be southwest of Spain. And then we'll have Valle del Ebro, which follows the river Ebro, and that's a few municipalities which be northwest of Spain. Now, out of those zones, some of them are, because they are large, they require even a deeper sub-zonification, sub-regions. So being the main one, Comtats de Barcelona, the zone of Catalonia, where the 95% of the sparkling wine Cava is being made. So this zone, we have 5 different subzones. One of them is Serra de Mar. Another one that would be around Alella. Another one is Baix da Noia Foix. That's where most of the Cava is being made, and that's Sant Sadurní, Vilafranca del Penedès as major towns. Excuse me. And then we would have another zone which is Conca del Gaià, that's closer to Tarragona. Another one which is Sierra de Prades, and another one Pla de Ponent. Each subzone has its own characteristics in terms of climate, soils, and even varieties. Some of these subzones, we have more, one variety or two are predominant to the rest. So there is reasons and a lot to discover in these subzones. In terms of, as I said, is origin and is a commitment to the method. So this commitment to quality. You know, there are different methods or different ways of doing a sparkling wine. And ours is one that's looking at the vineyards, at the origin, at the soil, at the climate, and also chooses a long method in which it requires long investments. You have to build big inventories because those wines are going to be aging for a long time. And then at the same time, so you'll have long crianzas, you require lots of space in the cellars. So clearly this is a commitment to quality that Cava is making and has always made. And that's one of the challenges, to how to better explain this story, because the quality is there. So we have in this couple of last 2 years, we have also worked on the crianza level and the aging level. So we have a set of wines that the requirement is being 9 months of aging, minimum 9 months of aging, which is quite some time, is what the traditional methods require. And they are called, or they are already called, guardas. All these names will take time. We understand that to be understood and known by the consumers. But in the wine business, true things and things that clearly mean something and set different categories, slowly, if they are truthful, as I said, they become something by which those consumers that love Cavas and those experts that love the wine business, slowly they pick up and they refer to it, and will help to better define what we all today call Bio Cava, Cava in more different terms. So we have the guardas, but we have created another category, which is guarda superior. That goes along with crianza as well. The guarda superior is for those sparkling wines that have to have a minimum aging of 18 months. And clearly, in this guarda superior category, we have 3 today Cavas that belong to that category. One is the Reserva, minimum 18 months. Another one is what we call the Gran Reservas. That's a minimum of 30 months aging. And then we have Cavas de Paraje, which is a minimum of 36 months, but it's not only the long aging that they make them different, it's also that they come from a specific vineyard. Paraje, in fact, means a beautiful small vineyard that has the connotations of producing a great quality grapes, and that would be Paraje. So we have these 3 Cavas that belong, or subcategories that belong to Guarda Superior. And then on top of that, we have created another subdivision or a seal for those sellers that they want to make Cava from the very beginning to the end. So they only make their own wine, so they purchase the grapes. The grapes can come from their own vineyards, but also they may go out and choose a great vineyard that they wish, or any vineyard they wish, and then they buy those grapes, then or their own, they crush them and they make their own base wine, and out of that base wine they will make Cava later, by the traditional method, with the second fermentation of the bottle, with the aging that they choose to make, with the different years that we've heard before. So they go from the very beginning to the end, and they control the whole wine making and vineyard process. And that seal is called Elaborador Integral. So it means, integral means holistic elaboration, from the very beginning to the end. Also, another thing we have gone deep in the Cava, apart from the origins, the aging, and giving those specific seals to those wineries. We have also we are pushing for organic. Organic is all the wine business, and the world is going organic, with the good and not so good of organics, because within organics there are many things that fall, and still is like anything in life. There is certain laws and normatives that need to be, still readapted and modified to better continue giving those organic characteristics. But yes, there is a commitment for organic, and all premium wines, as you were saying, Richard, before, the premium side, all will be required to be organic. Today they already are, or they are already taking the grapes from vineyards that are in transition. So that this year they already declare enter into the organic world, and in 3 years if they continue being organic, they'll be given the organic seal. So there's a transition period, but already all premium Cavas, so all the Guarda Superior will be organic wines. Apart from here, other people may decide to treat their vineyards biodynamic or with other things, but basically that's what we've been doing. So that's a little bit the commitment of Cava to the grapes, the winemaking, and the long aging, and that's what we. It's now is our when we talk and educate the people, it's about these things. Another thing that Cava has, and what we believe is very important, is a DO, because in today's world, a DO can be, if it's not dynamic, can be great, can be also restraining in some aspects, but a DO can certify that all what we put on the label, certify to the consumers and to the trade, of course, that all what we put on the label is true. So if we sell an origin, the origin will be truthful. It won't be a blend of different origins. It will be that origin. And that's important for the commitment of what we are saying here. So will be traceability, there is and will be traceability for the origin, and of course the crianzas, because if you are talking about long aging, that aging needs to be truthful as well. And the nice thing is that it's something that's set up in an European level, and as the DOs, we have people and departments, technical departments that do this supervision, but we are audited from coming from Brussels, from Europe, down to the Ministry of Agriculture of Spain. So we are also audited, all our technicians are audited. And in fact, if there are sanctions, those sanctions at the end are not even given by the DO, they are given by other legal bodies, no? So that's, I think it's another important thing of Cava.
Okay, can I just jump in there, because so we got a lot to get through. Thanks for setting that out. So we got from what I understand, that those two changes in the quality tiers have been introduced. Was it in January? The new
Yes,
Guarda and the Superior.
Yes, we've been working with them for 2 years, but they are slowly introduced. The rules are approved already, and since January, gradually they are coming onto implementation.
And is the idea to sort of try and simplify the kind of the aging criteria, so that you've got those two
Guarda and Guarda Superior.
Yeah.
One of the other things we want to communicate with Guarda is that it's traditional methods. Guarda for you may mean not so much, but for us, Guarda is guarding something in some cellars for a long period of time with a wine that's evolving. So we want to be known for what we are making the effort. We want to make sure that slowly consumers will know that we are Guardas.
Okay. Can I get if the panel are aware of those changes that have come in?
Richard, just because you just, I wanted to say 2 other things about Cava, which also put Cava into a scene, in spite of what was said about the UK, which is what is the reality. Sales of Cava are growing very nicely worldwide. Last year we had 17% growth. And we are in a 71% of Cava is sold internationally in many different countries. Just to put also Cava, we're talking about the UK, but that Cava is a growing sparkling wine with challenges, as we said before. So, Richard, again.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so we can obviously we can come back and pick up on some of the more details around, particularly the traceability thing that you talked about as well, which I think is. But just from the panel's point of view, I mean, just picking up on that, the idea of having introduced these two new kind of spectrums, I suppose, of Cava de Guarda and the Guarda Superior, around which Reserva and Grand Reserva, from what I understand now sits. Any thoughts from the panel in terms of whether that's a good move, whether that any reaction to that?
I think it is a good move. There are obviously terms being used on labels that have familiarity to people in the wine trade, but not necessarily to the purchasers. You know, Grand Reserva is obviously something we associate with Rioja and red wines, but I think the British public have quite, on average, not a bad knowledge of Spanish produce of the vinous side, and would recognise that term. I think it's up to the DO or people in the trade to educate people. All about education. That type of thing slips under the radar. If it's taken 3 years for the DO to bring it in, it's going to take 10 years for the public to know it's happened. It's a lot of let's get shouting, let's get, that's
awareness.
where the work's got to come.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sort of nodding my head in like a nodding dog over here. I think it's fully. Yeah. How does the DO get that out in front of the public, as quick as possible to understand this new change? That's a challenge.
And also what it means in terms of what they're actually buying. We can say, look at this quality control, and that people who aren't in the industry, like you're saying, Michael, they want to know what it's going to taste like. They want to know what they're buying. How is that different than their Cava that they're just grabbing off a shelf? So in terms of flavors and selling it in an approachable way that gets across the quality behind it without like blinding them with all of our knowledge of vocabulary in Spanish and English in the wine industry, bringing it to a level where they go, oh, I love a bit of almond or brioche, or, a bit of like creamy sensation on the palate, and just making it approachable for them that they can identify with.
Absolutely. That's what the thing is. I know COVID has sort of made home purchasing a lot bigger, but tasting and promotion has not been available. So there's an opportunity for the wines of Spain in the UK to really get behind a public tasting in all the big multiples. That's the only way this is going to come to the woman of the house that does 75% of the weekly shopping. And that's a critical move that, some money's got to be thrown behind.
It's interesting, Laura, that you mentioned sort of like using taste profiles as well. So as well as like saying Superior, Reserva, Grand Reserva, it's actually throwing in Grand Reserva. You're getting more layers of butter, or we're getting more layers of texture or whatever, so people can kind of visualize it as well as.
And explain the story, that someone has, the premium method of the watching. You can say guarda, well, I know what that means, we do, but if you say it to them like, this actual bottle has been monitored, cared for, treated with the highest quality control, and you are going to taste all of that in this bottle. Everything that's gone on is here. You can buy it for such an approachable price, and you're getting amazing quality.
What's your thoughts?
I think it's down to marketing, and I think Laura's right about reminding people about those great words like brioche and almonds and that stuff like that. But if you look at something like Graham Beck from South Africa, he's taken on the whole world, and he's succeeded by ignoring the Italian word and not comparing it to that, because it's a different product. So he's always compared his MCC or South African sparkling to champagne, and his bottles look like Moet. And he's the most successful South African sparkling wine producer or supplier in the UK, and he's done that by just going around everywhere and promoting it and using French or champagne words. And once you get that into people's head, they go, oh, right, yes, it's, you know, Cava is a good value champagne. And I know we can't say it officially, but the public can say whatever they want.
Nicholas, in the world of DTC, adding more layers of, well, not necessarily complexity, but what's your thoughts in terms of the steps that the DO are taking?
Yeah, I think it's you're wanting to convey a new classification. As we mentioned, it's going to take quite a lot of time for that to trickle through and for people to understand what it is, what it means. And I think the sort of, it's good to define and have people understand what that is, but it's also could be a little bit of a curse to sort of break stuff down and break stuff down and break stuff down, because the more you do that, if there's a problem with communicating what the product is in the first place, then complicating that sort of that definition could be a bit of a curse, and obviously that'll take a long time to come through. But then, you know, it's a global marketplace, so what kind of makes sense to us in the UK might not apply all the rest of the world. So there's more of a considered view to come at for the DO in general. But yeah, you know, I can cling on to those words. They kind of carry through into English as well, some of them. So I think that's going to work from that standpoint, the kind of word association. But yeah, you know, it's learning something completely new. So that will also take time. So it could be a blessing, could be a curse to sort of set yourself apart from the rest of the pack. This is what we are. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of marketing money to plow into that, to get that message across, essentially.
I suppose that's always a challenge for all regions around the world, really, to have that kind of regulations. That means that all the producers in that region are really clear about what they're doing, but then being able to then transcribe that and then communicate that to the outside world can perhaps be another challenge as well. Well, we've got a few Cavas in front of us here, so should we start tasting some of them?
I think so. That sounds like a good idea. Roger, I just had a question here. This is probably more to you, sort of restaurant world. The new classifications must be a fantastic talking point from a restaurant perspective in terms of taking that customer on the journey of what they can taste and what that can match potentially within in gastronomic terms. And then they can have that surprise factor as well when it's sort of explained to them that it's actually a Spanish product rather than a champagne, which they may naturally sort of fall to.
Michael,
yeah, I mean, it's, I think people who go, well, our customers, our past customers, they were very educated and far more educated than a lot of the press that were slow to bring things forward. And yes, certainly those words for them, they would be, you know, it would be great interest to them. And you hear them just explaining them to their family or their clients they brought out for lunch or dinner, why they've gone for a Grand Reserva Cava as opposed to Reserva, and they explain it themselves. And so there are obviously a lot of educated people in the UK, and I think, you know, as we've all said, during lockdown, a lot more education has happened. And although this new classification may be great for a very small proportion in the UK, we still need to educate the other 99% on drinking Cava, who will then in 5-10 years time understand this classification. But at the moment, we need to educate them to drink Cava. But the people, you know, the rest of the world who are far more ahead of us who are drinking Cava, they need this classification because they want to experience a bigger story of Cava, and this is what it'll do. But it's not, you know, it's not I know a lot of us have said it may take 10 years and everything else, but it's building steps, and I think it's a good start.
Yeah, I think it's obviously Cava in the on-trade at the top end at Rogers Michelin level is a very different kettle of fish, where most of the customers going in there have a fairly high knowledge of wine. If you take coming down to your average pub chain, your average wine bar, the knowledge of the product is much diminished. It's a celebration drink. It's the first, what we're going to have at the beginning of a meal. It's taken with a much lesser level of concentration, right, to say it's all about celebration. Let's have a cheers. They're not thinking as much about the product. At Michelin level, at Hotel du Rhin level, at, sort of superior end, it's a very different kettle of fish. And again, to the people who are just going into a shop to buy these products, why are they buying it? You take a Majestic, has people, you could go into a Majestic and find 30 foot of New Zealand Sauvignon, 30 foot of Argentine Malbec, 20 foot of Prosecco, 20 foot of rosé under its old hat. It's much changed now, which is a good thing. But Cava had a massive place in our grocery market. What's to say that if they don't get behind that position where people are drinking it at home? We are a very, very mature wine market. We have probably the biggest selection of wine in the world in the UK. So everyone's fighting for a little bit of space. Cava had big space before. So it is something that is known by the mature people of this market. So there's nothing to say that if the Spanish wines of Spain get behind this, that they can't achieve that again.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's really interesting. Thanks for taking that onto the next stage of the conversation. I mean, so to go back to the wines themselves, I mean, should we take what do you want to do? Should we taste the rosés first, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, probably they're going to be the most approachable, aren't they? The fruity driven ones.
So if you want to try and, I mean, I know that the two rosés we have are from two different regions, I think, aren't they? Is that right? I think we're there. So if you want to perhaps open up the two rosés, and then we can. So we have.
Which one are you? I know, because you mentioned that to me, Richard, that you have two rosés.
Yeah.
One of them, if I'm not mistaken, is Dominio, because you said it to me before, is Dominio. Let me check my notes. Dominio de la Vega. And the other one is it's Roubaix, no? Brunatur, Roubaix.
Yeah. So
one comes, Roubaix comes from Baix da Noia Foix. No, now talking about territories, as you said before, it's in the Catalan region, and the other one is in the Valencia region. One is made out of Pinot Noir, and the other one, I'm not sure what varieties they have. Possibly, so I cannot tell which one is the Roubaix. The technical sheet with me.
The Imperial Rosé is 100% Grenache or
Grenache. So it's Grenache, great.
Yeah. So the so the Imperial Rosé is 24 months aging, and the Dominio de la Vega, I think, is 36 months.
How many did you say?
It says aging on lees, the minimum 36 months.
I guess that it's been on the lease for 6 months, but the aging has to be longer, at least than 9 months. So
36 months, sorry.
36. It's my English.
No, it's me speaking too fast. Sorry, it's okay.
And which is the second rosé? I've got that one. What's the other one?
It's the Rousseau. Oh, crocky. It's the Imperial. This one here, I think.
Yeah, I've got that one. What's the other one?
It's
De la Vega, was it? The
Oh, right,
De la
okay.
Vega.
Yeah, I get that one.
Salud.
Rosé clearly is booming, obviously in still wines, but also in sparkling as well. So, what percentage is rosé in for DO Cava?
It's still very small
Yeah.
in terms of percentage, but growing at 2 digits since quite a few years on a row already. So it's as you said, it's a growing category, and the mentality that rosés were neither white, neither red, and were not good. That's all gone, and people now love rosés.
Yeah, and it's clearly a new opportunity as well for producers who may not necessarily have thought of making it in the past or seeing it as being a premium wine. And would you have an idea of the kind of price point for these kind of wines, just roughly? I know we don't necessarily have the.
Good question. Yeah.
I don't think we have the
Price point would be interesting. Yeah, if you do have
Yeah.
retailers.
I personally
Anyone?
don't have them.
No.
But I guess that both of them, one being a Pinot Noir, and both of them being long aging in Spain, but Spain and the UK don't match. So in terms of pricing, but in Spain it would be fairly approachable, but fairly high prices. So let's say it would be between 15 and 20 or 15 and 25 euros a bottle. So in the UK that would go, I don't know the UK, that would go more for 20 pounds or something like that. Or maybe 15 pounds.
Yeah.
15 pounds possibly.
Laura, what's your experience of rosé Cava?
Being honest, from where I've worked in retail, it's obviously mostly the brut ones that would sell. When I am on my travels around Spain, I will opt for a pink Cava, honestly, because if food pairing, the sunshine, I'm a big rosé fan in general, so to have a glass of pink Cava is for me amazing. On my tastings, usually I start with the white. I think I've done some for the pink, and yeah, I mean people love it, but it's like what we're saying, we need to get this out there. We need to spread the word, we need to market it, we need to educate in ways that people will be able to identify with it and see how amazing it is.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of the taste profile we have on these wines, I mean, compared to some of the other rosé sparklings that we might be more familiar with, any thoughts in terms of what the taste profile might offer?
They seem to be a drier, less fruit-driven.
Yeah.
Which I think is perhaps something they need to look at, because I think certainly if you look at certainly the emerging English rosé sparkling wines, they're the ones that can be brought to market first. They don't need to be aged. They're all about delivering, you know, red berry fruits and some nice crunchy acidity, and that's what an aperitif is about. So I think perhaps, you know, I mean, even the color on this Imperial, it looks as if it spent some time being aged, where I think the color is half of what people want to look at in a rosé, and about the joyous side of it.
Yeah. is it a slightly more gastronomic style, Roger, do you think, that they use?
For me, the Pinot Noir is absolutely exceptional, but the colour doesn't. For the normal people in the streets would prefer the colour on the first one, but the quality in the second one, the Pinot Noir, is absolutely outstanding.
That's the Dominio de la Vega.
Yeah, especially with food.
Yeah, that's why I think, that kind of gastronomic sense to the.
Yeah, and I think that the presentation on it is absolutely stunning for high-end restaurants and enjoying at home.
The colour is so, I mean, now with rosé in general, especially the British consumers, it's all about the colour. And I think sometimes from what people have been saying to me, they go, oh, it just looks a little bit too dark for me. I like it very, very pale. It's such a huge thing at the moment. So yeah, I agree with you with the colour on the first one as well, being approachable.
But I think this is what's become a sad thing with British people, this obsession with the Whispering Angel effect.
Yeah.
That, any decent rosé from Chile made from Cabernet Sauvignon or something with a lot of colour, or an old Claret from Bordeaux, full of flavour, but people don't understand the difference between flavour or fruitiness and sweetness. They say, oh, that's sweet and confected. Well, they're not. They're just roses with personality compared to these bland, characterless wines in sexy bottles.
Yeah,
exactly. It's all about the aging. So where should we switch to next? We've got there's a couple of Brut Natures here, I think. There's the Alta Alala Birkin, or what do we think? There's the Premier from Rabalats, sorry, as well. Roger, what do you think we should go to next?
I think if you've got the Brut Nature would be a nice light.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. So there's I think there's two, isn't there? There's one from Alta Alala, which is the kind of the blue and white label.
Yeah.
we have a richness of Cava to choose from. It's a bit crazy when we've got so many Cavas to taste.
Yes, as I said before, I don't have the list in front of me, so I'm a little bit out. But from what I hear from you, Roubaix is a Brut Nature. Brut Nature, for you to know, which you already know. A Brut Nature is that can be done in Cava, no added liqueur d'expedition, so no added sugar at the moment of sealing with the final cork the Cava. So it's dosage is 0, and that what makes a Brut Nature. And that one is from Baix d'Anoia Foix, from the basically Penedès region. Alta Alella is from the other region that's called Serra de Mar, which is in Alella, which is close to Barcelona, but it's a different region.
And is this a style that you're keen to promote? Do you think it offers something different for Cava?
Well, Brut Nature is something that is selling very, very well and grows a lot. I think that Cavas accept very well having a very low dosage or minimum dosage. So it's working very well.
Any thoughts on these in terms of where they may sit, and that very clean and fresh style, which
I think it's a style that obviously Laurent Perrier tried to introduce into the UK first from a champagne point of view. Some of the Buyer's Own brand or the small white fan man growers tried to do it, and for me, they're probably culinary wines to be put with, you know, seafood, that type of style. And where do you educate the customer again who buys a bottle of Brut Nature expecting to have some yeast autolysis and a bit of, you know, mouthfeel, and suddenly has this very lean, linear style of wine that they perhaps don't understand? So I think it's a brave thing for Cava to go down, unless it's in the premium sector.
yeah.
But again, I think it gives a different style for consumers. And if you're trying to get them to drink Cava, you can say, look, this is a style which, you know, grab a bag of mussels from Waitrose and take a bottle of this, just like Cloudy Bay did in the early marketing days, and a sourdough bread, and you've got a meal and everything else done. And that's a great way to introduce someone into a Cava, and then people will suddenly talk about it, say, "Oh, have you tried that Cava? You know, it's not sweet. It's not like the Italian stuff. It's, you know, really exciting, and it's interesting." And then it's just getting them into that Cava mode and building their knowledge of Cava.
Yeah, I think from a restaurant point of view, this offers, you know, particularly, you know, with starters and canapes, and there's a real kind of nice, compared to, yeah, a real point difference, I think.
I think I'd agree with you there. Yeah, there is definitely, I think, a foodie element, more so to a Brut Nature than there is mass market, shall we say. I think the average consumer may struggle with that unless they're really trying to push their boundaries. I think it's very much foodie led, or you're very savvy wine purchaser already, and looking for something slightly different and broaden their horizons on what Cava can offer. It's beautifully made. I think the average consumer will slightly struggle with that. Again, it's this identity, really. I think this is slightly too niche for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think amongst us, I think we get it. I think if they just grab the average man on the street, I think they may, or woman, they may struggle.
Yeah.
And there could be something to play on there. I guess there's the sort of psychology of sugar. People come up to the bar or go to the shelf and say, I only want a dry wine, although that isn't necessarily what someone wants when they say that. I mean, if you give someone a screamingly dry Riesling or something like that, then, you know, it sort of knocks them back in their seat. Whereas I think something like, especially that one there, we were saying that, you know, perhaps it's too lean, there isn't enough autolysis, that kind of thing. And I think there is quite a lot of toast to that, although it finishes quite serious and austere. So there could be something to that, sort of educating through. If you want something truly dry, like, here it actually is, and you can kind of find your limit on that. And that might be sort of bandwagon to jump on as far as conveying that message. But aside that, yeah, it's that gastronomic thing, that sort of tasting menu pairing kind of thing. I mean, I'd drink this all day.
Yeah,
I'm not the consumer.
I think the low
absolutely
sugar thing,
delicious.
Yeah, as soon as you say, oh, there's less sugar in this, that's all you kind of need to sell it out. You like, you know, if you're trying your whole you know, health kit just before Christmas, you know, these wines do not have as much sugar, so give it a go. And for those people who are saying that they're finding Prosecco a little bit too sweet now, after it's kind of been thrown at them, you know, this is a great angle to come in at and say, well, you know, this Brut Nature, give it a go and try, you know.
There was one winemaker who said if you drank Brut Natural, you could go down one size in trousers. But I don't know if that's true or not.
I might try that then.
Yeah.
Lived off it all summer.
And I guess other people are communicating the fact, you know, Brut Nature goes across the sort of different categories of wine as well. So, you know, perhaps it's a little bit more understandable, the fact that it is there in Champagne and it is there in Cava too, and you can understand what you're getting.
And I think that Cava, to me, that's to me again is my opinion. It goes very well with food. I usually drink Cava with something else, you know, and you are professionals and you're doing a professional tasting, and that you also take that in mind, of course. But for the average consumer, when they drink sparkling wine, either be Cava or not, they do that together, generally speaking, with eating something, you know, paired with something. And that's also, you know, goes along with the wine.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I think we're not sure. Do we actually have a reserver? I know we've got lots of Grand Reservers, but I'm quite not sure we've got a reserver, or have we? Actually, is it the
De La Vega is reserva.
Is it?
I think.
Yeah.
Blanc Noir. Yeah, that was reserva.
Which bottle is that one? Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We've been through that one, haven't we? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Reserva.
Should we look at the there's the Guillero wines? So there's a
Yes.
Grand Reserve, which are,
I think that's a really interesting label.
yeah, they're both
Yeah.
both these styles are quite an interesting. Perhaps you want to take a look at those. Do you know this producer?
That's a small producer, Guillero, out in the Valls d'Anoia Foix subregion, so Penedès area, you know.
I think this label is brilliant. I think from a modernist take on a label to get the younger, I don't know how you sort of market that, the younger drinker,
Yeah.
obviously being over 18, involved in wine. I think that's quite funky and that's quite clean, really, versus some of the more traditional ones I think I've got here, not barring the Brut Nature we just tried, which also I think that's a very stunningly clean label. But these sort of styles, I think, definitely open the market up a little bit more to that newer, younger customer, possibly wanting to get into wine or try Cava.
Absolutely.
I obviously have that as my hat as a retailer.
So the Mussavari is a blend of Zarello, Macabou, and Paraleda, and the Cava Guillera is 100% Zarello. So perhaps we can taste those and have a thought. I think what's coming through straight away actually is the level of variety, and there's so much well, obviously we talked earlier about the number of tiers and the different aging criteria, but I think that's coming through just in the wines that we're tasting so far.
The Musavari is beautiful fruit, lifted fruit, and lovely intensity and freshness.
Yeah. Okay,
I've tried the other one. The body on the Vetrarello is just amazing. Big fan.
Okay, I think Courtney actually just said the Guillero Musavari 2007 is around £26, and the Guillero Zarella 2014 is around £37. So
oh, knew I liked it.
I mean, a car was that kind of price point. I mean, what's the thoughts in terms of their position in the market? I mean, obviously the taste profile is there, but you know, I mean, obviously they are batting in the champagne category in terms of price point, anyway.
Yeah,
it's a tough place to put that, to be honest. I think.
Yeah, it is. I might have to retract my statement as to younger drinkers. That's a heavy price point for an entry customer. I think it's a great bit of packaging. The quality is phenomenal. But
yeah, we might just need to clarify those prices, but that's kind of what's being said. I'm picking up on, but in terms of the profile, the tasting side of it is, yeah, I think the packaging and the wine both dovetail nicely.
Yeah, I mean that's a sommelier-led wine, isn't it? So if you've got someone who's got the passion, got the menu, tasting menu perhaps, where you can put that in, that's where wine professionals can slide that seamlessly into a menu. But for the general public, I think it will be a big struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roger, your thoughts on those? Have you had a chance to taste that?
I loved them. Absolutely fabulous. I think the price surprised me on the Guillero, but
actually, sorry, I'm now being told it's £17 for the Zarella. For the pardon, sorry.
Which this is now 17.
Yeah, beg your pardon. Yeah, sorry. Just literally as we're doing it, we're just kind of researching the.
No, that's fine. That's okay. This is
back
17.
to you young consumers, Matthew.
I'm back to the consumer. I stand by it. We'll reinstate that statement. I don't know how many times we can dub that
that's
out.
all right. We could do
okay.
Deep.
At that price, it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah,
that is gorgeous.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good price point. A consumer wouldn't be an entry-level consumer wanting to maybe just test the waters into.
Yeah, so to clarify that
Cava.
that's a £17 price point. Yeah, so
beautiful, stunning wine.
Yeah,
great wine for that. Yeah,
good. They've nailed it.
And the other one, is that still in the 20? Sorry,
I think so. Yeah, we're kind of like off camera
while they're doing it in the background. While you're we
did it beforehand really, but we're that is I think coming at 26, but we'll clarify before we. I mean, what we'll do actually is the end of this session. We'll send you through the pricing if we can for each of the bottles as well. So obviously that will help. In a way, it's like sort of blind tasting without knowing the price. It's such a thing.
Well, it stands the wine on its own, really, doesn't it? We all I think we all agreed that it's a brilliantly made wine. And then at the price point, we're all like, "Oh, I don't know," but actually, that's good value for money now at that price point. What my personal opinion is, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, where I mean, just on price points, where do people think sort of premium Cava can sit in terms of where the sweet spot is ideally? I mean, obviously, as Michael says, if you've got sommelier in the right venue, you can probably take it up to the highest level, but.
Well, these are grand reserves, so there will be a higher price.
Yeah,
most consumers,
undeservedly so, considering the amount of time spent making them.
But most, if there's a reserver, it'll be, more, I presume, £10 to £15 price range, which is cheaper than English sparkling. And
then for Grand Reserva, you would take it up to
Yeah, 20
Yeah.
I
upwards.
don't think that's unreasonable.
Again, that's professional people's opinions. We've got to think of it from the public, what they're prepared to pay for it. How often will they say, yeah, I'm going to spend 25, 30 quid on a Cava, when their perception of it has been at a lesser price point? It's, that takes a lot of convincing.
Yeah.
Well, I think you need to have the good value ones and the expensive one in the same sort of shelf
Framework, yeah.
Yeah, to actually help people visualize the pricing ladder, don't you? Because otherwise you just sort of think it's just Cava, and then
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess it goes back to the educational point about why the Grand Reserva is so much. So should we tuck into the Grand Reservas? And they're quite. Perhaps we look at the Pear Ventura wines first. And we could keep the. So there's a couple of the Pear Ventura. There's the Tresor Grand Reserva, and there's a vintage one of 2015. But so the Tresor Grand Reserva, 40% Macabou, 40% Zarello, 20% Peralada. Excuse my pronunciations. Do you know anything about any thoughts on the Pear Ventura as a producer?
No.
Yeah, the producer is also in the area Baix da Noia Foix, which is the Penedès region, and the winery is near Sant Sadurní d'Anoia, and it's a producer also that's committed to quality.
Okay.
I love the bottling, the packaging, the marketing of it. Really lovely on the vintage, especially.
Yeah, that kind of engraved glassware is
Like the little glass thing. Yeah.
It's quite interesting actually seeing the different bottle shapes actually across the because obviously that's something else which sparkling wine has really taken to another level. It actually is the different kind of bottle shapes which seems to work now across sparkling. Obviously. And the Pear Ventura vintage is 60% Zarello and 40% Chardonnay. So interesting to see the Chardonnay coming through. And again, they're already organic, I think. You mentioned before the move towards organics. What's the proportion of producers are organic at the moment, and how you mentioned 2025 has been the commitment for all organic, but do you know where you sit at the moment in terms of the number of producers?
It's I think maybe around 30% already organic vineyards, and it's growing by leaps and bounds. It is clear that in our region to become organic, maybe it's easier because we have the climate conditions to work the soils and the vineyards that make it a little bit easier. So it's a clear commitment to organic.
Yeah, and that's a strong commitment as well to have them all by 2025. So
yes, but again, there was a discussion if that's something that should, anybody that wanted to be organic, it would be his choice, which makes sense, or we wanted to make it, a sort of a deal commitment. And the final decision that a deal commitment was a stronger message, and that's what everybody's opted for. Yeah. And organic is a commitment because at the end you are at the mercy of the weather in many different ways, and makes agriculture's or the growers' life more difficult. but certainly it goes along the lines of being more careful with your property and your land.
Excellent. Any thoughts on the Per Ventura wines?
I'm just looking here in terms of this one being 11.5 and bringing it back to our general consumers who don't really know much about wine, as well as the sugar aspect, that whole slightly lower ABV, I think will definitely go in people's, in its favor. For me personally, when I'm selling wine, that people love that. They go, oh, if you got anything under 12, or if you got anything a bit lower. So some of these wines are coming in at 11.5, which I do think for the general public will be quite a good selling point if you are selling wine as well.
That's a very good point, actually. Very good point. I think most of these wines are all sort of 11 to 12, aren't they? So
yeah, which is great. So great on the price, lower sugar, lower alcohol.
ticking all the right boxes.
Yeah.
And interesting with the disgorgement date on the back as well. So for people who've got a little bit of knowledge, that they can see when the bottle was disgorged. So it's definitely an attempt at putting information, quality, presentation to justify the price.
Yeah, it's interesting that with the Per Ventura wines, they've got two very different style of bottles as well. So they're trying, more traditional bottle and perhaps more of a modern style, which is interesting to see. Sort of trying to push things forward as well. Do we know why? Do we know why there's a little hand, little hand in the bottle? I don't know whether that's. Do we know why there's a little hand there? It must be perhaps it's the winemaker's hand. Who knows?
What do you mean with the bottle?
Yeah, just on the. I don't know whether you can see on the actual bottle there. There's a hand imprint.
No, I cannot see that.
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to tell why he's using that hand there. Possibly has something to do with himself, his life, or the winery, but I wouldn't be able to tell.
Okay. And then the last, we've got selection of wines here from Cuvée. Actually, before we go to the Cuvée and camps, we have the Dominio de la Vega. Perhaps we should taste this one again. Another style of bottle.
Another Brut Nature as well.
Which again is interesting to see that kind of.
Dominio de la Vega is the one that we tasted the rosé before. That came from the Levante area or region, and it was made out of Pinot Noir. So I don't know if this one is made out of Chardonnay. That could be.
I think it is.
It's the Cuvée
100% Chardonnay. Yes.
It says.
Yes. Because I think Dominio de la Vega specializes a lot in Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
And this is 120 months.
Yeah.
20 months.
120, yeah. Which.
How many?
Wow.
Well, I don't know whether the tasting note doesn't.
I think that's wrong.
That can't be right, can it? 120 minutes. So aging on lees minimum 120 months. I don't know. So that must be.
I think it's meant to be 36.
Yeah, sounds too high to me.
It's a commitment level.
Is it a typo? It should be 12.
Well, it's 2017 vintage, so we can do the maths on 10 years.
Oh, is it 17? Oh, yeah.
17.
I'm just going. Just got some more prices here for you. The Per Ventura vintage Gran Reserva 2015 is £37, and the Per Ventura Gran Reserva Brut 2018 is £18. Just to put that in context. Thoughts on the Chardonnay style?
It's a lot of acid.
You know, that's competing in very serious territory. If the person who bought it knows it's Chardonnay, you know, that is very often the sparkling wine drinkers' champion of wines, the Blanc de Blanc. Tough territory to play in.
And are single variety Chardonnays, is that a growing trend in DO Cava?
No, I don't think it is. I think that, in fact, you know that many, how would you say, prescriptors have often supported autochthonous varieties, and they call autochthonous these varieties that you know, have grown mainly in that region. And Chardonnay and Pinot Noir appear in our region, in the Cava region, already in the late 60s. So it's already been there for a long period of time, but they have been under attack by many experts because they are not autochthonous varieties. So that has kept the Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, at one time it was a growing trend, to a level in which is used for blending. But some specific wineries, they still believe on those varieties and that they have great vineyards for that, and they go for that. So there are a few, but it's not a growing trend. I don't know what is your thought on this, because generally speaking, people tend to talk a lot about autochthonous varieties.
Yeah, okay. Just aware of our time. So the Cuvée and Camps, we have three different wines from them. Perhaps we just have I mean, clearly they're one of the more familiar, well-known producers, and I guess, you know, have done a lot in terms of really setting the benchmark for a lot of the prestige and the profile of DO Cava. So just before we dive into them, the last wine, the Domina de la Vega, I think that's about €25. Not sure on the UK price, but obviously around £20, I guess. So the Cuvée and Camp Singular Grand Reserve Brut Nature is at £17, and I guess it's one of those producers that sits nicely across premium retail and the on-trade. They've managed to find good distribution in both.
Yeah, I think they're sort of one of the Grand Cru of the Cava.
Exactly, yeah.
We've known them as being Juan Carlos's personal preference, so it's historically seen as being a premium product.
Yeah. Javier, any thoughts on Cuvée and Camps in terms of what they're doing and how?
Well, Cuvée Camps is, you know, I guess is one of the best known quality brands of Cava. They only specialize in Cavas at a certain price point. So their mark is quality, and they have a full tier of different Cavas, with some of them with very long aging, and also they offer a wide variety of profiles. And they have quite a few vineyards themselves, most of them planted in this case, with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, though they also work and buy grapes from Xarel·lo Macabeo Parellada from the region. They are nearby San Sadurní, and they are truly committed to quality. Is what they really want to be known for.
Yeah, I must say, I love their bottles. I always think whenever you see them on shelf, they really stand out. And I think here they're really.
That one's stunning.
The Grand Reserve, yeah, as I was just going to say, yeah, that one is very special. Yeah, it's kind of. So actually the prices here are interesting. So I mentioned earlier the Brut Nature is 17, the Grand Reserve Brut is 15, and the Reserva della Familia Grand Reserve Brut Nature is £20. So very, very well positioned in terms of where they sit as well in terms of price point, I think. Yeah. Roger, your thoughts on them? Have you had them on your list before, or?
I do, yes, and I've actually been there. And if you look at the Zero Low, excuse my pronunciation, the flavour profile on this is absolutely stunning, and it does remind you of Spain in some way. And I think this is another sort of great selling point. So once you've got people onto the Cava sort of window, you can then go to the singular natural grapes of the area. And these guys did it so well. It's absolutely superb.
Yeah.
There's definitely a step up through all of these wines. You know, they're premium and they taste the quality, the varietal characteristics, the freshness. You know, you hear people talking about brand Cava at the bottom and this, you know, cardboardy and not necessarily clean to the you know what we're used to, but all the price point always worked. Here there's a definite step forward. So I think, you know, these wines, once they get tasted, will definitely make inroads into the UK market.
Yeah, I mean, sort of coming towards the end of the tasting, really. I mean, what are your thoughts now, having tasted all the wines, you know, based on our previous conversations? I mean, are these kind of what you expected to see, or were there styles here that you haven't necessarily been that familiar with before?
There's definitely a huge increase in variety, much more interesting wines. This would not be a struggle to bring into our group. And I can't see that any one of us who are all professionals would be happy to get behind these wines and bring them to our drinking partners.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nicholas, you mentioned you don't have a Cava on the list, but any inspiration here to perhaps have a couple, or?
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, I'm already an advocate for Cava. Personally, it's just about finding the supply and the right supplier for that, the right importer. You know, sort of opening my eyes on Guillero, these two different styles side by side, the sort of more trendy kind of reduction vibe to this one, and this is slightly more lush and giving. I think there's a point there to, you know, hone in on those sort of indigenous grape varieties, whether they're contested indigenous or not. And you know, I think that's a point of interest for me personally, maybe on the more sort of geeky wine side of things, the more sort of hipster wine bar side of things. You see a lot of Guillero done in orange styles, in different styles of still wines as well. And I think it's kind of a catchy word that people could jump onto. And it really sings true. You know, you've got one great variety from, you know, this single place, and it can express itself in a number of different ways. So I think as a variety comes, it's got a lot of flex behind it, maybe not Macabeo as much. It's kind of difficult to make incredible still wines out of it, but you can make quality volume out of the grape variety. But yeah, those two are the standout for me. And I think, yeah, the super interesting is the style.
Brilliant. Laura, you obviously you said you're a big fan before, but I mean, is this kind of like
Well, yeah, I always have been a Cava fan, but now just having done this this chat with the panel and tried all these amazing Cavas, I'm just ready to go out there now and tell everyone how amazing it is, all the plus sides, and yeah, just spread the word, educate in an approachable way, and yeah, definitely, my heart's in it, and I'm ready to go.
Excellent. Well done. And yourself, Matthew, in terms of what was your standouts in the panel from the tasting or some of the styles that you've?
Yeah, it's been interesting. There's definitely, it just shows the scope really of the quality across Cava as a whole. The quality is standout. I think we've had one that's slightly more acidic than we possibly would like, but the rest have been standout. The only thing I would have possibly liked to see a little bit more of, I know Laura touched on it, and customers are asking for this more sweeter. Oh, some are saying sweeter, but they actually, or they want dry, but they actually want a sweet, or they're saying they're moving away from sweet. I'd be interested to try a few more sweeter styles, possibly in the future from Cava, and see what's happening there, because I think the demi-sec market is slightly underrated in the UK, and I think consumers actually love it, but they're in denial, and I think they would possibly enjoy that from Cava, and that may be an entry point for them to get the consumer on board, the mass consumer on board quicker, and then step them up through what we've seen here as the sort of more the top tier products. But overall, no, it's been fantastic. My standout is the Brut Nature. This is stunning. I don't know if you can see that on my screen.
Okay, yeah.
It's absolutely stunning.
My standout was this one, hence why I'm now having another glass.
Yeah, that's a close second for me. That's a close second. Yeah.
It's very good. Roger, your thoughts in terms of?
Yeah, I think we've been very lucky in that we've been given obviously the top levels of these Cavas. It would have been nice to see some value ones just to compare what a good value wine would show, because obviously these aren't wines which are going to be bought, daily in a supermarket, because some of them are absolutely exceptional. Besides that Chardonnay, but I think it's just an oddity, the Chardonnay, because the Pinot was so good. And I don't know with your corks, the Chardonnay cork looks a bit faulty compared to all the others, which have
absolutely.
Yeah, I got that.
Chardonnay is and it looks a bit shabby's not the right word, I suppose. It looks like they've just borrowed it from a second.
They probably want it back.
It's not well made.
Do you get the Jiffy bag, Roger? You've got to pop it back in there and send it back.
Yeah, but exceptional. Really enjoyed it. Really, really good.
Yeah,
it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good. And just to finish off with, I mean, obviously, Javier at the beginning, went through in terms of where Cava is repositioning itself, all the various steps that the region is taking to ensure its future, I suppose. I mean, what would be your final summary, your final thought, really, on how best for the region to really kind of like get its message across? I mean, obviously doing sessions like this and getting close to the trade, but I mean, what would be your kind of takeaway for Javier from this session? Michael, do you want to dive in?
Yeah. Well, I think the wines have spoken for themselves. The packaging has definitely moved into a sexier territory. One thing I think Spain has done well is it's always packaged and labelled their wines in a modern and appealing way, which Italy perhaps doesn't, and many other countries don't. This is brave territory to be moving into, but the quality is speaking for itself. But the government, the wine police, everyone to do with Wines of Spain in the UK have really got to jump on the bandwagon and start banging the drum here, because there's a lot of investment that's gone in from the producers, whether it's from the organics alone, let alone the packaging, the product, and to let that just sort of not be championed would be an absolute travesty. So I think it's something that every market around the world is different. The Spanish-speaking markets, obviously, they understand the labels, and everything is more, the information is there. For us, the British, the Americans, maybe the English-speaking world, we need a little bit of mollycoddling. We're a mature wine market. Many other countries aren't. You could say Britain has been a price-orientated market for many, many years, but that's not unique to Britain. So it's important territory. Bang that drum, produce information, produce leaflets, get behind the big multiples. It needs to be done from the source.
Excellent, thank you. And Nicholas, do you have final thoughts for you in terms of feedback to the DO?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting proposition, isn't it? There's obviously value there, there's quality, and it can sort of launch its attack on the UK market in a number of different ways, down at the sort of entry level and combat there perfectly well, although we haven't sort of tasted that stuff today. And there's also something to be said about attainable premium as well, that we're sort of heading into a recession, and you know, sometimes you've got to make hay when the sun doesn't shine. And perhaps, you know, if we're seeing people buying a luxury commodity off the shelf, they might be considering trading down now as everything else begins to bite, not necessarily in quality, but in the price tag, from a champagne dropping down and exploring other avenues, because people's hand is a bit more forced. So it becomes a bit more of an interesting playing field for wine. And I think there is something to be said, again, sort of circling back to that single varietal, a little bit more wine geeky side of things that can be pushed on the more cooler hipster angle as well. This sort of young, confident shopper that we're definitely seeing coming through online, that has a bit of knowledge, but they've got the confidence to purchase something, and they have more money in their back pocket than the sort of, you know, slightly older generation ahead of them. So yeah, you know, there's loads of opportunity when you've got something fantastic as far as quality is to sell. But I think there's many prongs that could go out, not just taking on Prosecco or taking on Champagne, but sort of carving a few different furrows for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. That sort of attainable, knowledgeable, inspirational quality level of wine. Laura, can I ask you, is your final thought?
Yep. I basically think that the sheer fact that we're here today talking about it, and we're all fans and we want to get behind it, I think it's great that the DO of Cava are aware that there are challenges in our market, and I think that's a great place, because we've all vocalized them from different aspects: retail, you know, trade, on-trade, restaurants, for me as like education and tastings as well. I think getting behind staff training, as hard as it is at the moment in the climate we're in. I was in a bar recently, a Spanish themed bar, and I was like, oh, there's no Cava on your menu. And they went, no, it doesn't sell. And I was like, it will, if you get people behind it, if you put that effort into the staff. And I know it's difficult in the times we're in, but it starts there. You know, you go in, you taste it. There's a bar by mine and they only sell Cava by the glass, and everyone loves it. But if you were just given a glass of Prosecco, you just drink it. But the fact that they're trying, you know, we can all get behind it. I've also got a question for Javier, because I think I know how to say it, but I'm not sure. The 3 grapes in Cava, can we just do a pronunciation of them, just so that when we are talking about Cava, we can all say them correctly?
I need to go on that course.
Was that directed at Richard by any means? Or?
Is it Macabeo? Is that right?
But you are doing very, very well all the time, you know? You pronounce the grapes better than I pronounce my English.
Yeah, well, it's lingo vino.
Macabeo, Xarel·lo, and Parellada.
There we
Parellada.
go. I think that will help us, you know, if we can say them, even if people never remember them, if we can sound like we're behind the Spanish theme, then that's the first step.
Matthew, your final thought?
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, I'm already sold on Cava as a whole. I I wish it all the best of luck, because I think I still stand by my comment. The identity crisis is there. The quality is in it. And seeing what we've seen today has been exceptional. I would like to see a little bit more in the other sectors, be it the sort of more sweeter styles. I think that'd be interesting. But let's champion it. I think Cava does need another push to get that new hat on it.
Final thought from you, Roger?
Yeah, I think, we're all talking about marketing and all that. I think we want to compare this against English sparkling and champagne. There's only one way of doing that, is to hold a blind tasting of English sparkling, champagne and Cava, but not, and I think we have to draw a line under Prosecco, because it's not the same component. So we don't compare it to Prosecco because it's a different style. But I think once people then see how good these are up against champagne and the prices, it'll be a very easy sale. It's I don't think it's trying to say this £19 Cava beat Krug. It's not all about winning. It's about comparison and saying this was as nice. So maybe not having a full competition, but having a market room where people just came in and had a comparison and thought, yeah, this is as good as that. It's like when we had the champagne tastings in London, the big ones, and you could compare various champagnes to each other. And it was just a great way of doing it.
Yeah, excellent. The judgment of Barcelona or something. That's
Yeah.
Can I just come to you to the end then?
The trip to Barcelona is a done deal.
Well, perhaps we should all go to Barcelona and help.
Yeah.
So, Javier, can I ask, just as a final thought from you then, in terms of what you've heard from the panel today and their reactions, what's your...
Well, I mean, to me, it's really been a pleasure to be with you, because one of the things, I was thinking when I was hearing you is, first, there is a challenge. Cava is a great product, lots of success, but in the consumer's mind is more attached to value than to quality, high quality, also sparkling wine. So that's I heard the words long-term building, and I think that's what it is. We need to do that. We need to put money as well. With that money, it's very difficult to conquer people's mind. I also heard that the quality is there, so we have a good base, and we just need to be perseverant and continue. And just to tell you that I've taken plenty of notes because I've been in the wine business for a long period of time, and I know I believe that the trade in the UK is the best, or the most knowledgeable, or the best prepared in the whole world. Why? I'm not sure. Maybe because you have so many wines available to you, maybe because you care to study and to learn, but that's a reality. So to me, it's also been a great session, because I'll try to get some of your ideas and put them into motion as well. So thank you very much.
Excellent. So thanks a lot, Javier. Thanks for obviously thanks to the rest of the panel. That's been a really great session, and good news is we now have all these nice Cavas to enjoy over the next few days. So
game over for today.
Yeah, it's a great lunch.
Okay, thank you. Well done. All right.
Thank you, Javier. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much.
Laura and everybody else.